Alright, hey guys, welcome to Eternal Midnight. We're going to be talking about Spider-Man Homecoming. Tom Holland's had a bit of a controversial debut. I mean, they all have since Raimi, but yeah, I mean, me and Chad quite like it. I gave 4 stars. What I don't remember what you gave it, Chad, 4 as well.
I think I gave it.
Yeah, you gave it 4.
Yeah. I know it's ranked. Let me double check. I know I have it ranked really high on my MCU list. I know that.
It's my second highest Spider-Man movie personally after Spider-Verse. I absolutely love it. But yeah, it is controversial because a lot of people seem to think that Iron Man's a little too involved in this. It's the first time we've seen Spider-Man with other superheroes. People are complaining. But I mean, I'd say it's a really good movie. But we're gonna sort of pick it apart, talk about our opinions, because I think we don't think all movies are perfect and there are flaws. So I think we can talk about quite a bit on this one. I mean.
I think going back to what you just said about Iron Man being in it, because I'm not gonna lie, this is the only. Don't cry when I tell you this. This was the only one I did not see in theaters because I was like, I don't want to see Spider-Man rebooted a third time. I was like, I'm so tired of this shit.
See, I knew it would be a breath of fresh air because following it behind the scenes. They said they're going to avoid treading on old ground. Everything's going to be new, and it's more integrated into the MCU, so it's going to have Iron Man in it. And I think that alone gives it a little bit of a boost.
Well, and that to me did the exact opposite. I was just like, another one of these movies. I was like, we're just doing this again. We just keep shoving in Iron Man into everything. I was like, he just took the center stage in Civil War away from Captain America because he did. And I was like, they're just going to do it again. But then when I got it on Blu-ray and watched it, I'm not going to lie, I went into it when I was first watching it that morning, not wanting to like it. I was like, I don't want to watch this, but whatever. And I'm not going to lie, like half an hour into it, I was like, why did I skip this in theaters?
Yeah. It doesn't feel like anything we've seen before in a Spider-Man movie. Iron Man's presence, I don't think it was anything like this. I think it was more, it's more like the ultimate cartoon. Where it was sort of, he was the mentor, he was the guiding figure, and rather than doing Uncle Ben again, they did Iron Man, and spoilers, after he died in Endgame, that's his Uncle Ben moment on screen. He's already had the Uncle Ben moment off screen, but that is the one we get to see. And I think their bond is more than anything that we've seen with Peter and Uncle Ben in previous movies, so it was nice to see. It was really well written, the sort of stern father figure that's always disappointed. He's very, he's pushing you in a very blunt way to be better. And I quite like that because it sort of made Peter be more independent. I mean, the entire final act, it's in his own suit, fighting a villain that isn't his own, proving his worth to Iron Man by taking on one of his rogues, which, I mean, it's a nice twist on Vulture, I thought.
Oh, I thought Vulture was amazing. I mean, that's what happens when you get an amazing actor to play a villain, though. You're going to get a solid performance.
Yeah, and I mean, Vulture, again, one of my least favorite supervillains in the comics, and I absolutely adored him in this because what they did is they took what Spider-Man 3 and Amazing Spider-Man 2 did wrong, and they did it right. So they want to build on Spider-Man's mythos in his world, but where the others just ham-fisted it in, they subtly built it up. So rather than having every single villain, which I think there was about 4 total, take center stage, they have them as side characters to the main villain, sort of like how Peter has his cast of side characters. So with Vulture, you've got the Tinkerer building all of his tech, and he is not the main villain. He does not have a rivalry with Peter. He is very much just a side character that builds on the Vulture's stuff. And then you have the Shocker, which is the goons, but they're built up as new villains. And then you have Scorpion, who's a sort of goon as well, but he's alluded to becoming more in the post-credit scene. It's all very subtle. It's all...
Don't forget, you left out one of the better ones.
Prowler?
Yep.
He didn't really do anything, though, so I wouldn't count him.
He's
more of a cameo.
He was more of a cameo, but at the same time, that's like, the Easter egg saying we could get Miles at some point.
Yeah, that is true. So it's very subtle the way they built this world up, whereas with the other it was like, look at all the fucking suits we've got. It's gonna be the Sinister Six. With this, it's like, okay, so we've got Vulture, you've got the Tinkerer, you've got 2 Shockers, you've got the Prowler, and you've got the Scorpion. And it's just so meticulously and subtly
they naturally exist as opposed to being forced into the scenes.
Exactly. They feel like they're a part of this world rather than it's very clear that this is just the writers building this whole crafting this whole world for us to enjoy, rather than it being a studio saying, look, we want to do this in the next movie. It feels a lot more organic, and I think that lends its hand to making Vulture a better villain, and it lends its hand to making the narrative a little bit more believable and a little bit more engaging. I mean, Vulture's whole arc was fantastic. Making him Liz's father was a great twist. The car scene is one of the best in any superhero movie. I just think this movie, it's stock full of great moments, and it feels a little bit more fresh and a bit more unique in the MCU and in Spider-Man. So it did both, I thought, quite well.
I think another thing that took me by surprise, and I think because I know there's still haters on this one out there, but I'm perfectly fine with it because I truly think it does represent the more wider world we live in, was the way Flash was portrayed in this movie.
I know people like him, and I'm quite young, I'm 18, and I've met people like him. So to me, it was very much, oh, okay. It's a little bit more real.
It was a different take. That it obviously wasn't, like you've said, the 50-year-old man in the Raimi movie. But it's like, while I did enjoy him, it was a different type of take on a bully.
Yeah.
I still think obviously we're going to be getting more of him, so they'll have more time to build on him, I think. As of right now, after only one, I think I still prefer Flash from The Amazing Spider-Man, but I can definitely see that they're going to be able to do more with this Flash. But I mean, I enjoy him, and it's just, he hates Peter almost in that, like, what I like about this one is he hates Peter almost in that, like, jealousy way. You know what I mean? He doesn't have a reason to hate him. I mean, he's shorter than him, he's smaller than him, but he still has that, like, dick complex going on with him, and I'm like, it's jealousy. That's because Peter's obviously smarter than he is, because they were both on the shit. What's that thing that they do? It's not the fucking knowledge decathlon, whatever.
Something like that, yeah. See,
I
think
like that. He was supposed to be on the lineup. Peter joined them in Washington D.C. and they're like, oh, okay, Flash, you're off the panel. Peter's back on.
Yeah, see, I think the Amazing Spider-Man Flash, in my opinion, will always be better because he was much more complex and he had a better actor and he was better written. But I think the thing with this Flash that I like is it's very clear they're not going to do Agent Venom with him, and if they are, you can get a personal trainer and give him a decent enough script and he'll be able to do it. People saying, it's impossible, look at him, he's scrawny. Fuck. I mean,
that
if they're going to
mean anything in today's
world. I know,
world.
but if they're going to do Agent Venom, right, one, he's not old enough to go into the military. It's going to be at least 5 years away by the time they do it. So he's got plenty of time to grow into the character, because if you told me that the Flash of the comics was going to be Agent Venom in the 60s, I would have laughed at you as well. So they have time to do it if they ever want to go down that route. And if they don't, who gives a shit? Agent Venom, as much as I love it, I'd much rather have a more complex and better written character that is more captivating and engaging. And I think Flash is exactly that. He's more real, and the whole thing with Spider-Man is relatability. So I think that works so well. I think that's the whole thing with his side characters, though. It feels more Gen Z. I think The Amazing Spider-Man felt a little bit more millennial. Raimi's felt a little bit out of touch. But this one, I think it's sort of, this is what Gen Z is like. And you've got these grown men saying, oh, well, that's not what school's like. You haven't fucking been to a school in God knows how long. I mean...
Half the people saying that's not what school is like were in school before we all had smartphones. So
I was in school when this movie came out, and it was so relatable. It was great because I've loved Spider-Man since I was a kid, but I think this is the first time Spider-Man has felt a little... I felt in the same shoes as Peter Parker. I understood him more. Because all the other ones, I was like, oh, I know school bullies. I know these characters, but I don't know the way they're being portrayed. It feels dated, feels archaic. Whereas with this one, it was very much, this is how school is for me. Because I didn't know that any bullies that would physically beat you up. I mean, that wasn't a thing. But bullies like Flash, who were either jealous or just straight up assholes because they've got something going on in their life. Who knows? Whatever reason it is, there were bullies like Flash in my school who were always just sort of very... it was more, verbal. That's how it always was. It was never physical. So I think seeing a Flash like Raimi's, where it was comical and it was very cartoonish and 2D, that was a little weird. But seeing one like this, it definitely hits for a new generation. And that's what you got to look at.
It's a breath of fresh air. They couldn't... Obviously, we're not going to copy The Amazing Spider-Man's Flash, because that would just be retreading old ground. So they went they went a different route with a different type of bully, and I genuinely think it worked. I mean, I know a
Yeah.
lot of people out there, oh, he sucked, but it's like, you know what? Get over it.
If you look at this as because I think the whole thing is people will say, "Oh, comic accuracy does not matter," and they'll
God.
try and act like that's a thing. But if you took this and took Spider-Man out of it, it would be a modern day Breakfast Club, and I think people need to see it more like that. That's what Flash is like, and I mean the fucking I forget the director's name, I've lost it, but he said he was inspired by Breakfast Club for these characters, and it shows. And I think he's definitely modernized them. They need more screen time because they didn't have barely any in this movie. But I think given more screen time in Far From Home and a little bit more fleshing out, they will become those sort of Breakfast Club characters.
Oh, they're already getting there. You could see
Exactly.
it even in the Far From Home trailers.
Yeah, you could. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
John Watts.
John Watts, that's it. His name hasn't quite stuck with me yet. Raimi's
Not
name
yet.
says.
Well, Raimi will always stick with us because he was like the only one making good superhero movies in the 2000s. And Webb, I mean, come on, who could ever forget a man
Exactly.
named Webb in the Spider-Man movie?
So you got to stick with Watts after a while, but give him a few more movies and I'll be there. But I mean,
I think so. Give him Far From Home, and I think he'll be there.
because that's what I love, the relatability, the freshness of this movie, and I mean, whilst I did miss it, the lack of city swinging, it was so funny watching him run through the suburbs. I needed that. There's a panel in the comics where he does that, and he's like, "Oh, this fucking sucks," and he's chasing after a van, and he's like, "How do I swing around here?" And it's hilarious in the comic. It's hilarious in the movie.
The reason I think we didn't need to see the POV shots of him swinging or like the swing around the city yet is because I mean we did get it for like a few seconds in that little montage near the beginning, but it's like we just had 5 movies of that, so it's like, you know what, they were like, we need to do something different to make this one stand out from the other 5, because the other 5 we did have them, and it's like I was fine with that. I actually thought the montage of him being, the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man was actually really cool.
Oh, that was awesome. I want more just little things like that because it sort of brings the character to life. What's he doing when there's no supervillain? He's just fucking about, helping old ladies, helping people whose bikes are stuck, making mistakes. He felt, this is a huge thing. I think the first two, they were both coming towards graduation in their first movies. So right off the bat, they were thrown into adulthood, just like that. So this one, it's sort of like he's a teenager, he's young, he's youthful, he's naive, he's got the voice, he's got the look, and I think it's the first time we really had that. I was amazed.
How old was he in this one? I forget.
15.
Okay, so he was still a freshman, right?
Yeah, I would have been 16 when this came out, so I was around the same age as him. I loved the way they portrayed it though, because his humor's not quite yet refined. His personality is still finding its footing, but that's very much how you are at 15. So him not finding who he is yet and also juggling the superhero persona, it's brilliant. And I know his superhero life doesn't interfere with his real life in as meaningful or as obvious a way as the first 2 Spider-Man, but you could see it with Liz, I felt, because he blanks her to go searching for the Vulture, the whole pool scene, even though that would be his dream come true. He has to abandon her on prom. There's so many moments where that happens.
All right, so building on that, that's probably one of the only things I kind of had an issue with this movie is all the times Peter ditched situations or people to resume his role as Spider-Man. There were no consequences for
That's
it. None
the
of
problem. The people say it doesn't happen. I've heard that a few times. It does.
Happened
but
a lot.
Yeah, it's just the consequences of the
the one time it happened, I'm pretty sure this was Homecoming. Correct me if I'm wrong. He had detention and he just walked out. Or was that Amazing Spider-Man?
It was. Was it with Michelle, and they're like, "Why are you in detention?"
Yeah,
She's
it
like,
was
"Oh,
that. Yeah, I like to come here. I like to draw or something. Yeah, it's like that was the only time he got in any form of trouble, and he just walked out and no one cared. It was
Doesn't the principal scold him though at some point? I think that happened.
I don't remember.
But what I do remember though. What was it? Liz did bite his head off a bit for abandoning him at prom. I'll give him that.
Well, no, but that was like the 5th time he'd done something like that.
Yeah.
And it was like that makes complete sense. But it was like every other time it was like Ned when he was like show up to the party or whatever and he didn't show up. Ned just dropped it. It's like
Yeah.
we were talking about this, I think like last week or something. They handled it better in Shazam, I thought, when Billy didn't show up to the school as Shazam,
Yeah, they
and
did.
Freddy like got his ass kicked, and he was like, "Thanks a lot, prick. You said you'd
Yeah.
help me, and you didn't." And it felt more real because it's like in this one like that, it's just he doesn't show up to something, and it's just oh well. Like he didn't show up to the decathlon thing when he was in DC. That was never even mentioned. Hey, you didn't even show up. Everyone was just fine with it. Oh, Spider-Man saved our lives. We forgot Peter didn't show up to the decathlon or whatever the hell it was
There
called.
was a little talk from Liz, but a lot of it was just Liz going, ugh. It was never like, his life was getting, he wasn't getting punished for any of it, I thought.
Right, like he didn't get grounded or he didn't get in any actual trouble for it. So
No,
it's
it was
like,
always just conversations with
yeah.
emotion. It was never,
So I so
yeah.
going forward, I think that's one thing they are going to need to start to incorporate a little bit into it more is the whole consequences for being Spider-Man. So we can get because I mean these movies don't have to play out the way we quote unquote want them to, but I feel at some point it's like we do need to get it because that's part of what it is of being a kid and trying to juggle your life and being a superhero is
Well,
there
that's
has
what
to be
makes it so
sacrifices.
captivating. Yeah. But moving on to more positive stuff, I'd say this has the best score since Sam Raimi's movie.
Uh, I will agree it had a good score, and this is something we did not bring up in Amazing Spider-Man in the Amazing Spider-Man episode. Uh, uh, the score written for Spider-Man in Amazing Spider-Man 2 is still my favorite.
See, I think that Homecoming and Raimi's is a lot more memorable. It stuck with me more. So I think to me, it's just I prefer them. I get goosebumps hearing Holland's. I get goosebumps hearing Raimi's. I wouldn't with Webb's.
Well, the
But
first Amazing Spider-Man didn't really have one,
mm,
but the second one for part 2, written by Zimmer, it's just every time I hear that, I just want to keep hitting repeat and listen to it over and over. I love the
yeah.
one from Amazing Spider-Man 2.
I love the youthfulness and the energeticness of this one, though. It feels very upbeat, very
Well,
I don't know. It just
it's like you
fits.
said earlier, it's completely different than the rest of the MCU if you look at it. There's is no it's almost like the Guardians of the Galaxy where it's like it doesn't fit with the rest of the MCU, but that's what also helps make the MCU as unique as it is so many different types of movies in it. And this was the teen comedy of
Yeah.
the MCU.
And I loved it, and I'm really looking forward to seeing these characters fleshed out because, I mean, it's an unpopular opinion. People hate MJ in this movie, even though she only had 5 minutes of screen time. I didn't see a problem with her that much. She's the rebellious outcast, and I mean, at first, that is what MJ was in the comics. It's just how can you take a rebellious outcast in the 60s and replicate that in 2019 and make it, or 2017 and make it feel the same? It wouldn't work. You have to modernize that 60s rebel and make it more of a sort of a 2010s rebel, and I think they did a good job. She's not white, she's not a redhead, and she doesn't say tiger, but she's far better than Kirsten Dunst ever fucking was, so who cares?
Yeah, but that's also not hard to do.
It's not hard to do, but I like, okay, maybe she's not MJ that people wanted, but I mean, she's still a decent character. I don't think she's poorly written or acted or anything.
She didn't do anything to impress me in Homecoming, and I think I've seen it probably 4 times since I bought it on Blu-ray.
But the thing is, she only had
She's
like 7 minutes total screen time.
right, but that's what I mean. She didn't do anything to impress me. So if they really want to captivate me with her character, they've got some ground to cover with Far From Home, but I don't think they're gonna fumble the ball. I have a very
No.
good feeling Far From Home is gonna nail everything it's seeking out to do. So I'm gonna obviously going into it with a very positive outlook that they're gonna take the few things that fumbled in this movie and they're gonna perfect them in
Yeah.
Far From Home.
Well, in this movie, Liz was very much the focus for Peter, and I think MJ was just being introduced. So I don't think it's fair to judge her as a character in the same sort of way you would judge MJ or Gwen.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
She
yeah, but
didn't.
that's
She did
but
nothing to impress me, so that's why I'm saying I'm going into this
no,
one with a
no,
more
no.
positive vibe that they're going to flesh her out more to
No,
me
I'm not
now.
saying that you are saying. I'm saying that when people are so harsh on Zendaya's character, I don't see why. I mean, it's very very much. Oh,
It's like you
she made
said,
a
she doesn't
political.
say tiger, she doesn't have the
Yeah.
red hair, and she's not white.
And I think a big part of it is that she makes political jokes. But I know people like that. There were so many people like that in my school. I make political jokes like that. I mean, if if you can't handle another opinion, another political, you know, perspective, and someone making jokes about it, well, how are you watching movies to begin with? If that's because I've seen some people that have that problem. She made a joke about the monument being built by slaves. Like, yeah, people joke like that. I joke like that sometimes. People do. That's just something people do. And to hate her so vigorously because either she's not comic accurate or she does these things, I don't understand. If you have things like, oh, her acting isn't great or her writing, you don't like that side of it, whatever, think what you want. I think she's great. But I think there's two reasons I mentioned not being comic accurate and the political jokes. If you hate her for those reasons, I don't really think they are valid reasons, but that's just me. I think she's a decent character. I'm excited to see more of her in Far From Home. I think the only character that grates on me the more I rewatch is Ned.
Really?
Yeah, really.
No
It's a
kidding.
weird one. I loved him at first. I loved him when I first saw the movie, but then going back, he's very much just sort of, oh, you're a superhero? That's so cool. That's amazing. And it's like, yeah, I'd be like that too, but also it's so
See,
hard to
I'm
watch.
I'm the opposite. I am the exact opposite. I hated him the first time, and I enjoy him more and more as we go on.
See, I understand his character, and I think he's brilliantly acted and well written and everything. It's just, I think watching it over and over and over again, seeing this infectious, holy shit, you're Spider-Man, I want to tell everybody. It's like, God, just tone it down and be a person for a second. Peter was your friend before you knew this, and then the second you find out, it's like, fuck it, I want to be your sidekick, and it's just go back to being a person for a bit, because those are the best moments. Because I feel like he's going to be the surrogate for a lot of the audience in Far From Home as well, where it's like, oh my god, it's Nick Fury. Oh god, that's so cool. That's amazing. Oh wow, my friend is doing. And it's like, just, I want a moment where he's just speaking to Peter and they're having a heart to heart and they're just being people. That's what I love about Harry Osborn. That's what I love about Flash Thompson in the comics. I love that sort of friend that he can rely on, even if they know his identity. But I don't feel like we got that.
Now here's another thing. I know we're not going to go into. We'll go into this in a later episode. Do you think Ned is essentially the full-on permanent replacement for Harry now, or do you think we could get Harry at some point and Ned either, I don't know, goes off to college, or they just decide to retire the character, or what?
See, I'm hoping that Ned will either become a smaller role, die off, or
I think you gave me a scenario once, I think, where you talked about Ned dying off, I think.
Well, Ned Leeds in the comics is found with his throat slit working on a story, and it's revealed he's the Hobgoblin or something. But I wouldn't do the Hobgoblin, and I'd somehow, because I think that would be a big moment in the movies. I think it would be great if they could pull that off and do it in a sort of Death of Gwen Stacy way, not in the like, I need to save my lover, and it's Ned, and he snaps his back. I mean, that pivotal moment that changes will it change the comics forever? But I think they need something like that for movies. I think Ned dying could potentially do it. And I do want to see Harry Osborn, because I think in this movie, as much as I did enjoy Ned, it was that nice, refreshing, okay, we didn't get Harry for the third time, we got Ned. But now that we've had that...
If Ned dies, Peter's life will just be like the worst life any kid can live. He lost his parents, he lost his uncle, he lost his mentor, and then he's going to lose his best friend.
I know, but I think he needs to mature as well.
No, I know, I'm just laughing because it's like, geez, and people say like, Batman's got it bad. Look at Spider-Man.
I know, he has it quite bad in the comics though, so it's like, fair enough. But yeah, I think he needs to mature, because I loved him in this movie with how upbeat and energetic and youthful he is, but I think that needs to shatter.
So it's like, they're gonna have to, these are kids, they're allowed to have that fun, like even at the end of Endgame, they saw each other again, they did their little secret handshake. It's like, we're getting to the point where it's like, yeah, they're gonna have to grow up soon.
Yeah, that's the thing, because they're going to be 17 and 18 now. So yeah, I mean, to wrap it up, I'd say I love what it is, but if they don't take it a step further going forward, this movie will not age well. Because if Spider-Man stays youthful without consequences and he never matures, this movie will just become another, this is all he is. But if he has an arc over the course of these movies, this will stand the test of time. But it's whether or not they do that. But on its own right now, brilliant. Love it.
Definitely. And I truly do believe that Tony Stark being in the movie really did help it. I believe it did, giving him the father figure, the scolding after the boat was destroyed and the taking of the suit.
Yeah.
A lot of people I know are like, that's like oh, that takes away from Spider-Man being Spider-Man. No, it just showed him from a different angle of having an idol who also we had already connected with over the years. So I had no problem with Iron Man being in it, and I thought he did a great job being a side character in a Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, and he barely had any screen time. He was such a minor role, and I think he knocked it out of the park.
Definitely.
Yeah, so I
So
gave it 4 stars.
yeah.
You gave it 4.
Yeah, definitely. I still stick with 4, and I think overall, when it comes to like my entire MCU rating, I mean, I've got it at spot number 7. So I mean, it ranks very high in the MCU for me, and I genuinely like it's my go-to whenever I want to watch just like a fun MCU movie.
Yeah.
That it's like either that, Ant-Man, or Ant-Man and the Wasp, and Guardians are the ones I usually throw on.
Yeah, those are definitely the most fun. So yeah, I'd say to wrap up, we love it. Excited to see where he goes forward in the MCU, and he's such a refreshing take on Spider-Man after the 5 movies we got before it. But if you want to hear us rant more about, well, I mean, it's going to be Spider-Man with Far From Home coming up.
I'll say next episode after this is going to be our Far From Home review, so I'm looking forward to that. It'll be fun. We'll see that in a few days.
Yeah, so subscribe when you're ready for that, and feel free to follow our Facebook page where we'll be keeping stuff up to date, posting our videos and all that. Thanks for watching, guys.
Absolutely, guys. Talk to you soon.
Far From Home's in a few days.